Reggie here, your friendly neighborhood bodybuilder and comic book collector, and I want to welcome you to another one of my videos. Technically, this is a live stream, and I'm going live pretty early this morning in an attempt to get something off my chest. I have to get something off my chest because there's been a couple of things that have been on my mind over the last week or so. And I have to get this stuff out. I thought about doing this as a pre-recorded video, but it would have taken me a lot longer time to put this together as a pre-recorded video versus just jumping on here and going live and having the conversation with you guys. Because I think that could also be a little more enjoyable than just doing a pre-recorded video. And I may actually go live shortly after I wrap this video up to unbox that thing behind me over there. But in this video, much to the chagrin of my man Hydra Collectibles from across the water there is a belief that I have, and I've spoken about this a couple of times on my channel and on other channels about the fact that the X-Men could be fake. The X-Men could be fake. I am saying it, and I'm actually going to go through some of my evidence on this video. And here's the thing. Here's what makes this stuff fun. I don't know if I'm right. I don't even know if I'm right, but it is fun to play around with. I'm telling you, put your hand up if you're excited about the X-Men being back. Put your hand up because I am excited. I'm telling you, I have a slew of content that is ready to come out to you guys about the X-Men. I've already been releasing a lot of stuff about the X-Men because I'm excited about the X-Men. Somebody was like, I'm glad to see you talking about somebody other than Spider-Man. And here's the thing. Spider-Man's dope. The X-Men weren't, but they are now. So let me say hello to some comic book soldiers who have joined me on this early morning live stream, and then we're going to go ahead and get started. And I'm going to ask you guys to bear with me. I have exceeded my allotment with Comcast by like 10%. I'm like 110%. So they are throttling me. They are throttling my ability to stream from the house. So bear with me because it could get a little grainy up in here. So Hydra Collectibles, my man, is here from Heroes to Icons. It's good to see you, my friend. Kyler is in the house. Hawaiian Punch in your face 72 is here. Young T, my man, how you doing? Michael Joseph is here. He says, finally made it to my first live chat. Well, welcome to you, Michael. It is a pleasure to have you. Who else? He says, early for me, late for him, says Hydra Collectibles. Well, thank you, brother, for hanging in there with me. John's Comics with Kids. How you doing, my friend? All I need is 2 kids with me, brother, and I could be John's Comics with Kids. I'm telling you right now, if you guys are not watching John on Saturday morning, you are missing out. He does a great live show with his 2 girls. His girls are incredible. John is just Matt Forge, how you doing, brother? It's good to see you, my friend. Felix is here. I have no telepathy, says, what's up, Reg? It is good to see you, my friend. Randy Resnake, how you doing, brother? Scrolling through some of the comments, ICT Vinny is here. Scrolling. Tina, good morning to you. Omega Comics, how you doing? Releasing a video talking about Omega level mutants, possibly today. Des, Funko Pop, and Comics. It's good to see you. Party time. Comics is in the house. It is good to see all you guys. And again, thank you all for taking time out of your respective days to join me. So here's the thing. I have always felt that something was a little off about the X-Men, right? Because Charles Xavier has a new attitude, and there's nothing wrong with having a new attitude, right? He is in Phantom X's body. So basically what happened is there was a fight with the Shadow King, and so Phantom X basically forfeited his body to Charles Xavier so that Charles could actually come back and have a physical body on Earth. And so they basically switched. Phantom X is in the astral plane doing his thing, and Charles Xavier, now known as X, is walking around in Phantom X's body. He basically took his matter and reconstituted it and formed his own body. He looks like a young Charles Xavier. So I think that Charles is real. I think that Magneto is real. Some of the other characters I have questions about. And let's start to look at some of this evidence. I want to try to share my screen with you guys so that you can see part of what it is that has prompted me to come to some of these conclusions, or at least to raise the speculation. All right. So here is a panel that basically came from, I think it was like page 2 or 3 of House of X. This is a page that I think a lot of people just kind of looked at and just flipped over. I don't know that people actually took the time to actually stare at this page, but this is inside of Krakoa Island. All right. This is inside of Krakoa Island. I want to draw your attention to these pods right up in here. These pods right up in her are going to be very, very interesting. This is Charles Xavier down here. All of these pods, you can see these things. And again, I think that people just kind of glanced at it and just kept on moving. But as we progress through some of these things, what you actually see emerge from these pods are people. There are people that are popping out of the pods. There are pod people. Okay, keep up. Pod people. And what you can see here is that these people that are essentially being born from Krakoa Island pods are manifesting powers. This guy just rolls out of the pod, like I just rolled out of the bed. And he is already manifesting some mutant powers. And then you have Charles Xavier here, kind of sort of looking a little like, you know, a messiah here, a little cult like. The people are reaching up for him to just extend a hand. One of the things that I also find curious about Charles Xavier here is that it looks like he is wearing a helmet. And one of my speculations is that this is basically a portable Cerebro or Cerebra, depending upon which, you know, how Jonathan Hickman decides to roll with this thing. But you have mutants that are being born from pods, and you have Charles Xavier, or X, I think as he prefers to be called, rocking a fancy helmet that could be Cerebro. And as you guys know, Cerebro basically extends and amplifies his power. Charles is not an Omega level mutant. He uses Cerebro or Cerebra to basically amplify his power. Now, let me pop back to the chat real quick to see what you guys are talking about here real quick before we continue on down this road. H-Town Comics is like, wow, Reggie, you're up early today. Yes, I am up early and on early. So my kids always wake me up at the crack of dawn, but I decided to go live just because I had, so I have a busy day ahead. So I wanted to jump on here and chat with you guys. So ICT Vinny is like, yes, they came out of pods. Yes, they did. And a lot of people are starting to recognize this thing. Yep, I Have No Telepathy is talking about giant size X-Men. That is correct. We are going to continue to dig into this thing. So let me pop back to share my screen with you guys so we can continue down the road that we are on. I think that's, nope, that's not the right window. That is not the right window. Hold on one sec. Bear with me, people here doing live streams. It can get a little tricky early in the morning. All right, so here we go. We are back here with Charles Xavier and this mutant that was just popped out of the pod. So if you pop over here to one of these interstitial pages, and I'm a big fan of these interstitial pages, but this is a page that basically shows us a map of Krakoa, which is sitting in the Pacific Ocean. And there are all these little icons over here, and then you have a nice little legend that tells you what things are, right? One of the things is that number 9 is identified as the cradle. And number 9, as you'll see in just a second, sits next to the House of M. So if we scroll back over here, we can see number 9 is the cradle. And I don't know about you, but things typically that are called the cradle are where babies are kept, housed, born, blah, blah, blah. And then number 1 is the House of M. So you have a cradle and you have a house sitting right next to each other. Again, these interstitial pages, if you skipped over these when you were reading House of X, you need to go back and read them because there are some nuggets here. The house and the cradle are sitting right there at positions 9 and 1. So I want to give a huge shout out to my buddy. I think his name is Porter. Porter, I don't know if he listened to a previous video that I did where I kind of speculated about this pod people concept, but he reached out to me yesterday, and Porter P dropped some knowledge on me with regard to Excalibur number 31. And so that's what this is right here. In Excalibur 31, basically what happened is that a Nightcrawler was going on vacation. He crashes. He gets his way to an island, and on this island, he finds some very interesting things. And as you can see right here, these are basically the heads of the X-Men. These are Earth, if you will, crafted heads of the X-Men. That's Cyclops, Colossus, I think Nightcrawler's there, Storm is there, Wolverine is in the background, and he's like, this is too weird. Yes, it is. It is weird, and it is also creepy. So Nightcrawler has crash landed on this island, and let's continue on. Over here, as you skip through a few pages, he makes some comments here about the natives must have witnessed our battle against Krakoa. This is the battle against Krakoa back in Giant Size X-Men, to the point of someone just made. They said this explains their reverence for the X-Men, but why the human sacrifice? We're not going to talk about that. One of the other interesting things right here is if you look off to the side, it talks about the fact that the Krakoa Island was sent off into space. That is correct. It was sent off into space, so it is no longer on Earth. But what we find out is that Krakoa actually lives on in the form of his son. And so as the Krakoa Island was shot off into space, some of the spores fell back to Earth, and some of the spores actually landed on an island. And you can see, if you look right here, this is Krakoa's son, this guy right over here manifesting as a frog. You can see similar pods are sitting in Krakoa. And so this is the son of Krakoa. Again, because Krakoa was shot off into space, this is the son, no less powerful than his dad from basically what I'm seeing here. And there's an interesting note here. He says, because I need the occasional essence of a human soul to build my strength in order to avenge my father. He is basically using human souls to basically power himself, which is why there was this need for human sacrifice, which was seen earlier in Excalibur #1. And then if you continue on here, I actually skipped over to another issue, Deadly Genesis, X-Men Deadly Genesis. If you haven't read this, you definitely want to check this one out, because this is where we start to find out that Charles Xavier is not necessarily a pleasant man. He has done some crazy stuff where he actually assembled a second team to actually go into Krakoa to actually rescue the original X-Men team. And so this is basically him admitting to the team that he did some shady stuff, right? And this passage over here is interesting. And I could feel it. It was different this time. Like the island was angry at them. This is Scott talking. And he says, like Gabriel had actually heard it when he freed me. So this team, which is comprised of a couple of students from Moore McTaggart School. This is Vulcan, which is Scott Summers' brother. This is Darwin, who is super dope. If you're not reading Darwin stuff, this is really cool. But basically, this was the team that Charles Xavier assembled, and he actually sent them in to free Cyclops. And so this is the statement, like Gabriel had actually heard it when he freed me. And so if we continue on through this thing, basically what we find is that Krakoa was, as we've just heard, was kind of sort of living off of the island, living off of the souls, living off of the people. And so absorbing their essence is part of what he was doing. And I think we see part of that back here. I'm not sure if I pulled it here. I'm trying to see whether I pulled it through, and I may not have. Oh, here we go. Nope, I didn't pull it in. So sorry about that. But basically what happened is that the island of Krakoa was absorbing the essence, absorbing the powers of the X-Men that had been trapped on the island. And in that Excalibur 31, if you look at it, basically what starts to emerge from those pods that Nightcrawler finds on that island, he starts to basically see that the Krakoa Island is giving birth. He is giving birth to X-Men, which I think is which is crazy. He is giving birth. The island is giving birth to X-Men. And let me see if I can share that with you guys now, because I think I had to find it there. So my apologies for that. So let me see if I can share this thing with you. This is the panel that I was missing. But basically, if you can see this, what's emerging from those pods that I showed you just a moment ago is Wolverine. That's Wolverine right there. It says, during the X-Men's brief visit to my father's island, he memorized their genetic code. As his direct descendant, I share all of his memories. I've used that information to breed a new race of man. I call them, that's just the stupid name. But you can see right here, you have a stone Cyclops. A stone Colossus. You have a Cyclops who is able to shoot, I think it's volcanic blasts. And you have a X-Man, Wolverine made out of ice with 2 claws or 3 claws. So this happened back in Excalibur number 31, which again, I think that, a huge shout out to Porter for putting me up on that one, because I was not aware of that, but I went back and read it. And so this is interesting. Johnny Future says a little complex. Here's the thing. So Krakoa Island had the X-Men memorize their genetic code, and through the pods has the ability to create X-Men. Back when his son was basically doing it, he had not yet perfected the ability to create great versions of the X-Men. So they were easily defeated by Nightcrawler. But with time, who's to say that the son of Krakoa could not have perfected his ability from the time that the Giant Size X-Men dropped, or whatever, from the time that Excalibur 31 dropped, he could have perfected his craft. Now, what's not clear to me, and this is where I kind of debunk my own myth, the son of Krakoa actually drowned in Excalibur number 31. And to my knowledge, Krakoa is still in space. Now, I don't know, that could have changed. There were other spores that basically fell from Krakoa when he was shot into space. So maybe he has another child out there that landed on an island. And if so, that island would also have that ability to create and mimic the X-Men and or any other thing that was on the island that had been absorbed. And so, to Comics Explained's point here, you could have clones, you could have pod people that are being created. Because again, if you go back to that first couple of pages of House of X, you have mutants being born in pods. How is that possible? How is that possible? One of the other things that I will mention to you is, and this is again me debunking my own myth, what we find out from Charles Xavier in Deadly Genesis, I think it's issue number 6. What we find out is that Charles Xavier used Cerebro to basically make the X-Men think that the island of Krakoa was alive. Supposedly, it's not a sentient being, according to Deadly Genesis, but who's to say that Jonathan Hickman isn't going to rewrite history in some way, shape, or form, right? Because Deadly Genesis says that the island wasn't sentient, but Excalibur 31 says that the island was sentient, or at least his son was. So it's going to be interesting to kind of see how this plays out. But I thought this was an interesting take on what Jonathan Hickman is doing, and I wanted to raise the awareness for you guys. So I want to scroll through some of the comments here. Kyler says, what if he got the genetic code to Franklin Richards or Legion and copied and created copies of them? So what I will tell you is that in that Excalibur 31, the son of Krakoa was able to manifest versions of the X-Men. He was not able to, in that issue, correctly mimic their powers. So he created a version of Nightcrawler, and instead of disappearing and reappearing, he basically melted into the earth and then reappeared up out of the earth. But again, that was him using those abilities to mimic powers for the very first time. Who knows how much time has elapsed between now and then. So you could have him being able to recreate a Franklin Richards or a Reed Richards or whatever it happens to be. Now, what's also interesting about this is that in that Excalibur 31, the entity that was created had to stay in contact with the island. If it was removed from the surface of the island, it lost power. But if you remember, on those interstitial pages in House of X, Krakoa Island now has flowers that are able to extend where Krakoa is. And so these entities that are being created, as long as they stay within a habitat created by Krakoa, are in contact with the island and therefore powered up. So it's interesting. It's interesting. And I don't know if I'm on to something. I could be completely wrong. But again, this is all fun. We're just having fun with this stuff. So Young T is like, well, Xavier is a body snatcher. Yes, he recently Krakoa was befriended by Kid Omega, though. Again, I don't know about that. You could definitely be right about that. And that's not to say that all of the X-Men are fake. It's to say that there might be the ability for Krakoa to give birth two X-Men. That's or mutants at a minimum. That's kind of what I'm saying. Like, I don't know if Scott Summers is a pod person, right? But some of those other mutants that we saw popping out very well could be pod people, right? Hydra is basically saying same wavelength, loving it. Glad I bought these books last week. Yes, brother. I picked up many of these books, like the Krakoa Island book, which I highlighted in one of my previous videos. I actually can't even find it right now. It's somewhere here in the room. But there are these wonderful little nuggets that are out there in these undervalued books. And I think what's great about what Jonathan Hickman is doing is that he is drawing from this rich history of the X-Men, and he is telling a story, and we have no clue. We have no clue where it's going to go. That to me is fantastic. It is fantastic. Comic Space Explained says, I like to think that this is the Ultimate Universe version of Krakoa, specifically since everyone's dialogue box matches the font from Ultimate. You could be right. I think there's some wonderful things. I actually enjoyed like the Ultimates and Ultimate Spider-Man and Ultimate Wolverine versus Hulk. I enjoyed some of those elements from Ultimates, and I know people don't necessarily like it, but I dig it. And I think we are nearing the anniversary of the Ultimates universe. I think we're getting closer to the 20th anniversary, so I would not be surprised if there's some elements that get pulled in. I think that a lot of the things that were done in the Ultimate Universe, things that were done by Jonathan Hickman, have been leveraged in the MCU. So if we see a little bit of a merging of those things, I think it kind of sort of makes sense. So Comic Smiths Explained, you could definitely be onto something, my friend. Comic Collection Agency, it is good to see you, my friend. Thank you for joining. Scrolling up. The Almighty Liger King says, I think there may be more Krakoas around. Very well, could be. Because again, if you have the original Krakoa Island being blasted off into space, with an island, you have lots of spores, right? I mean, you think about it going under a tree. There's lots of acorns underneath a tree. So if you have something going that high into the air, you have a pretty wide distribution pattern for those spores to land on some other kind of island or to land on some kind of other landmass in which it could actually grow and germinate. So there very well could be more of those things out there. We will see. Jonathan Hickman's X-Men is a kaleidoscope of all the years of X-Men history. As far as we concerned, this is the definitive X-Men. I could not agree with you more, my friend. From heroes to icons, I could not agree with you more. I think that what Jonathan Hickman is doing here is incredible, man. I think people are digging it. I think this dude is really doing his thing, man. And I'm super excited, super pumped to see Powers of 10 on Wednesday. So so here, yeah, I just looked up something on Google. I love Google. And the one that was friends with Kid Omega was Krakoa 3. So now we have at least 3 Krakoas, right? So we have the original Krakoa, which was blasted into space. We have Krakoa, the son of Krakoa, who was drowned trying to chase Nightcrawler out into the ocean in Excalibur 31. And now we have at least a Krakoa 3 who was befriended by Kid Omega. And I actually have a video coming out hopefully today, maybe tomorrow, I'm not sure, talking about Omega level mutants, and Kid Omega is one of those Omega level mutants that I'll be highlighting in here. What is this? Reggie, did you catch my comment on IG about Cypher speaking Null's language? No, I didn't see that, brother. I didn't see that one. I try to read all the comments, but occasionally I miss one. So I didn't see that. So if you shoot me a message on Instagram, I'll definitely check it out and give you my thoughts. What if Cyclops' brother is a pod person and he was the first successful clone? This story has crazy possibilities. There could be something there because if you remember back from Deadly Genesis, basically what happened is, wait a minute, is that right? That you could be right. You could be right. Because what happened was that team that I showed you earlier with Vulcan and Darwin were believed to have been killed by Krakoa. And what basically happened is that the team's powers kind of blended together. A cavern opened up. All the team fell into this cavern, which was then sealed up. And basically what happened is Vulcan merged with Darwin. Darwin's ability, his mutant ability, is to survive, right? That's hence the name Darwin. He and Vulcan basically merged as they were shot off into space. And that's basically how Vulcan survived. He survives because Darwin shared his essence with him and they basically became one. But remember, they were sealed within the island of Krakoa. So the only way that, it would have to be that Krakoa in some way, shape, or form was able to survive in space. And I don't know whether that's true or not, but you could have Vulcan be a successful pod person. Who knows? Anything is possible. Anything is possible. And there's definitely the elements there. To Kyler's point, there are the elements there because Vulcan is a super dope character. I mean, he is powerful and I enjoy it. I read Deadly Genesis, all 6 parts of it in like a day. It's really, really well done. If you haven't read Deadly Genesis, I definitely encourage you to pick it up. It is the first appearance of a couple of characters that may have some legs coming up in House of M and Powers of X. But then it's also just a really good dope read that fills in some of the blanks around of what happened around Giant Size X-Men. And it was a fun read. I definitely enjoyed it. Wolverine and Krakoa seems to be acting out of his, there you go. So John's Comments with Kids is hitting on something else. If you remember from that scene, when Marvel Girl basically came to the island with a kid, you saw this scene of Wolverine playing with kids, being jovial. If that ain't pop people, if that's not pop people, I don't know what is, right? Because Wolverine is not necessarily the huggy kind of guy, but you had Professor X, being a little messiah like floating in the flowers over there, and then you had Wolverine who was kind of playing with kids and smiling, and that was interesting. If you also noticed, a lot of the characters did not talk. Magneto had the most lines out of the entire comic. By and large, you had Marvel Girl with some comments, but there was very little other dialogue outside of that. And I think that there's something there. Brian Parent is in the house. How you doing, my friend? It is good to see you. Scrolling through some of the comments here, Chris is like, yeah, I hope they don't keep Wolverine that way. He is the best at what he does, and it's tickling children, and that did not sound good. So let me not talk about that. Ultimate Universe was really well done. Nobody read it until after the Ultimates. Yeah, probably right. Because Ultimates was dope. Ultimates was really good. I definitely enjoyed that. And then I also went back and reread like the first 15 issues of Ultimate Spider-Man. Fantastic. Ultimate Spider-Man, if you have not read it, fantastic. I'm telling you, it is a really, really good read. And I was able to pick up the very first copy or first issue of Ultimate Spider-Man, and I enjoyed it. I enjoyed it. Lost Comic Junkie, how you doing, my friend? From Heroes to Icons, like, you're blowing this up, bro. So glad I have it in the LCS. Yeah. So, I mean, again, this the almighty Liker King saying Krakoa has mad kids like Wolverine. Brother, Wolverine has so many kids, it's just not even funny. It is not even funny. Scrolling through some of the comments here, Deadly Genesis was Ray crazy and she'd be used in the MCU. I'm telling you, man, I had heard about some of this stuff with Vulcan and the secret team and all this kind of stuff. I had heard about it, but I never looked into it. And again, with the House of X stuff, Powers of 10 coming out, I've been going back rereading a lot of old stuff, and there was so much really good stuff. I think it was Ed Brubaker. Ed Brubaker did his thing in X-Men Deadly Genesis. It is a 6-part miniseries. It is really good, and it fills in it fills in like with Donny Cates. There's these events that happen where there's not a whole lot of detail given at the moment, and there are these writers that are able to go back and basically fill the gap in and do it really, really well. And Ed Brubaker did his thing. He did his thing. Johnny Future, Reggie, isn't there a 6 flowers and not 3? So what I think that's how I read it. I think there's a total of 6 flowers. I think there's 3 for humans and 3 for mutants. The 3 for humans are the one that extends life, the one that kills physical illness, and the one that cures mental illness. Those are the 3 flowers for humans that are synthesized from flowers of Krakoa. And so what I'm not clear on is, are they the same 3 flowers that are for mutants, or are these different flowers? It's not quite clear to me, but there are 3 functions, if you will, for flowers when it comes to mutants. And they are the ability to create a habitat, the ability to basically form a transport, if you will. And then the last one is almost like a black site. It is a habitat that is basically invisible to the island of Krakoa. So if you think about a network, the flowers can create networks. They can create the hub is Krakoa. They can create satellites, and then they have the ability to create a connection between the hub and the satellite. And one of those satellites that can be created is one that is invisible to the hub. That might be the best way to explain it. If I could draw pictures, I would draw a picture because that would make it super simple, but hopefully you guys got that. So scrolling through some of the comments here, John Ryan, how you doing, my friend? It is good to see you. Here, and Brandon is on it, talking about there's basically a total of 6 flowers, 3 for humans, 3 for mutants. There you go. Bub Collects, how you doing, my friend? It is good to see you. Scrolling through some of the comments here, making sure that I'm kind of addressing some of this stuff. Liger King, so the classic Body Snatchers movies was part of Marvel Universe. Could be, my friend. Could be, my friend. From Heroes to Icons, Ultimate Spidey is fire. Yes, it is. It is really, really dope. Oh, and yes, you are correct. ICT Vinny is pointing out that I kind of did something slightly incorrect, and he is correct. Cyclops had some dialogue with the FF. That is true. And I think it lasted like 2 pages, maybe 3. Magneto by far had the most comments because he had all the dialogue basically going through. Yes, there were other people that spoke, but not as much as Magneto. But yeah, I think, and I don't think that Scott is really a pod person because he was not on the island of Krakoa when he was having that exchange with the FF. So that's why I'm kind of saying I think there may be some pod people, but not all of them are pod people. Could be Wolverine's just a pod person. So what is this? Comics for Thomas says he got the X-Men gold yesterday. Thanks again. You are very welcome. He Comics for Thomas was actually the recipient of one of the Go Collect giveaways that we do every single week. He actually received, he's up in Canada. He actually receives a copy of X-Men Gold #1 that was signed 4 times by Walter and Louise Simonson, and also by Chris Claremont and one other person that escapes me at the moment. But I mailed that off, and he just received it yesterday. So congratulations, brother. That was definitely a really, really cool prize. I don't like people proceeds to join. Grant's like Wolverine says he doesn't like people. Then he proceeds to join 90 teams and adopt 6 million children. He also probably gave birth to like another million. I mean, there are children falling from the sky who are calling Logan daddy. Comics Collection Agency is asking whether I've seen the Ultimate Avengers cartoon. I have not. Yeah, Brian, we are being throttled over here, my man. So basically what has happened is I've been doing so much content and stuff like that the ISP is basically throttling my speed. So I have my full bandwidth, but they're kind of gating my ability to go live. So it is a hot mess. So you guys gonna just have to deal with me just a little bit. So I definitely apologize. Tio says he just finished the video about Spec. The one, what, Spec Gone Wild? Are you talking about Spec Gone Wild, Tio? What version of Jean Grey is that? The OG costume? Yeah, she's gone back to the Marvel Girl concept, and I think she's gone back to Marvel Girl potentially because she's a pod person. She may be OG Marvel Girl because she's a pod person, because if you remember, Giant Size X-Men was Marvel Girl. So she could be pod person, right? Which is why she's in the OG costume. And so again, this is going to be some interesting stuff, man. I'm telling you, it is going to be some interesting stuff. If you think about that Mark Brooks spread that was in the Seeds of Tomorrow, right? Think about it. Seeds of Tomorrow. There are the hints. Seeds of Tomorrow. If you think about that, then you could have lots of X-Men. If you think about, where I was going was in that spread, there is a 2-page spread that Mark Brooks created. And basically what they say at the top of it is that Mark Brooks has dropped in dozens of Easter eggs into this 2-page spread. And what you saw in that spread was that you saw different ages of X-Men in there. You saw an old Jean Grey, you saw a new Jean Grey, right? So you saw all of these things in there. It's going to be interesting. You saw Baby Havoc, you saw Baby Storm was in there. It is going to be interesting. I'm telling you, there is more here than what meets the eye. There is more here, and it's going to be dope when it all gets revealed. Mr. Gorell says, I have to reread X-Men again. It was a little confusing with the first read. I didn't find it confusing at all, but I could see that. I could see that. I'm not going to dismiss what you just said. I think that I was somewhat prepared for the book because I had gone back and started reading a lot of the old stuff right before I read House of X. And I also read this book right here, which gave me a tremendous amount of insight. So I think I was prepared to walk into it. And if you did not read those interstitial pages at the time you were reading it live, you could have missed some elements. So I mean, I think it is one of those comics that I think you have to read maybe a couple of times and pay attention to because there's so much there. If you just sat and read it, you could potentially enjoy it, but there's a lot more there if you dig into some of this stuff. Kyler is saying, or maybe Marvel Girl was the OG Jean Grey, and the newer costume in the Phoenix was a pod person, meaning OG Jean Grey could have gone missing and pod person took anything is possible. Anything is possible. The only reason I'm speculating the way that I'm saying it is because Jean Grey, Cyclops, Colossus, Nightcrawler, those original X-Men were trapped on that island for an extended period of time. And we know from Excalibur 31 that the island absorbed their essence. We know that they had the ability, the island did, to recreate those X-Men from that genetic material that it absorbed from them. And so it would make sense that it would be the Marvel Girl version that would manifest itself as the pod person, given that we saw Nightcrawler, Colossus, Cyclops be generated in their OG forms. And so that's kind of why I'm saying what I'm saying. But anything is possible. Anything is possible, right? Anything can become something if the writer deems it so. All right. So Hydra says, so glad I traded my Walking Dead #1 for Giant Size X-Men. That's probably a good move. I'm just being honest. That's probably a good move. Mr. Grill says, yeah, I haven't read an X-Men for years. And it happens, brother. I'm telling you. If you watched a couple of videos that I released as of late, I'm dropping clues. I'm telling you guys, check this book out, because I think that in a lot of those undervalued comics, which you can read online or you can buy, it's your preference, I think that they're going to lend themselves to improving someone's understanding of what is about to happen with House of X and Powers of 10. That is my firm belief. And Deadly Genesis is one of those books that I encourage you to pick up. And just watch the videos. I'm going to give 2 plugs and then I'm going to get myself out of here, and then I may actually unbox this thing in another video live stream that I'll do. So I want to give you guys a couple of reminders. Yesterday, I released a video called Spec Gone Wild, and people have been really responding to this video. I was a little worried when I made it because I didn't know how people were going to receive it, but people seem to be receiving this video really, really well. So if you have a chance, please check out Spec Gone Wild. I think it's a cool video. And in some ways, this video dovetails with the Head or Heart vlog that I released like last week or something like that. If you think about what I do, I'm basically telling a story, and the different videos and the different vlogs in some way, shape, or form connect to one another. And so I just kind of call that out because I think if you listen to both of them, there's some stuff there that I think will actually help people. So hopefully you guys get a chance to check that out and, listen to it, give me a comment and all that kind of stuff. And then I'll also be releasing possibly another podcast. Maybe later this week, I'll maybe release one more to you guys. The last reminder that I want to give is that I just formed a relationship with 3204 Auctions. They have this really great 9.8 CGC subscription service. And with this service, you basically buy 3 credits. The credits are $39.99. And you basically get your comics at 9.9. You tell Jerry, the owner, which comics you want. He guarantees that you're going to get 9.8s. And you basically are able to get some credits, tell them which books you want, and then those books arrive. And if you use my code RegieCollects, you can actually save $25. And so what's great about this thing is, let's say that you have some credits already set up and there's a book coming out. You buy that book for $39.99. If that book goes up in value, you still only pay $39.99. And I think that's one of the cool things about it, is that you're guaranteed 9.8s at $39.99. So it's really cool. The link is in the description of this video. If you click on that link, you will go to the website where you can actually get additional information about the service. There is a really cool video there. And then if you have additional questions, you just email Jerry I've heard several people have reached out to him already this week, and he has gotten back to people with details that they needed about the service, how it actually works, et cetera, et cetera. And again, if you use the code, you can save $25 on a 9.8 comic from CGC. So there you go. All right. With that, I'm going to get myself out of here. Tina, thank you very much. I definitely appreciate that. I have a ton of stuff I want to do today. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to end this live stream. If you missed it, I apologize. Go back and watch the beginning of the video because I think there's some really good stuff in here that will make you say, and then I'm going to go live again in like 5 minutes, and I'm actually going to unbox this box behind me because this thing showed up yesterday, so I want to rip through that. So again, I want to thank you guys. If you need me, feel free to reach out to me at RegieCollects on Instagram at RegieCollects@gmail.com. I am not too hard to find. I am always around, so let me know if you guys need something. Take care.